She just sent you 3 crying emojis followed by, "I guess you didn't care about me anymore." And for the first time in months, you didn't immediately panic and start typing paragraphs trying to fix whatever imaginary problem she's created in her head. And that's when it started the real psychological warfare. Because here's what nobody tells you about women who use manipulation tactics when you stop being their emotional puppet. They don't just give up and find someone else, they escalate. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how they do it, and more importantly, how to spot it before it destroys your mental health. Because I've been there, and I've watched good men get completely mind-fucked by these 4 strategies that are straight out of Machiavelli's playbook. And no, I'm not some pickup artist guru. I'm just a guy who learned this stuff the hard way, and I'm sharing it because someone needs to talk about this honestly, without all the corporate sanitized relationship advice that pretends manipulation doesn't exist. So buckle up, because we're diving deep into the dark psychology that some women use when their usual tactics stop working. On you, and before you comment that not all women do this, obviously not all women do this, but enough do that. You need to know how to protect yourself. And if you're watching this video, chances are you've already encountered at least one of these strategies. So let's start with the first one. The guilt nuclear bomb. And this is where she takes every single thing you've ever done wrong in the relationship, or even things that are not wrong, but she's going to frame them as wrong, and she weaponizes all of it at once when you stop reacting. To her smaller manipulations, she goes nuclear, and suddenly, you're not just the guy who didn't text back fast enough. You're the guy who never listens, who doesn't care about her feelings, who's probably cheating, who reminds her of her toxic ex, who's emotionally unavailable and who clearly doesn't love her, and she'll deliver all of this. In one devastating emotional carpet bombing designed to overwhelm your logical brain and trigger your guilt response. Because here's what she knows about male psychology. We're fixers. We see a woman in distress and our biological programming kicks in to solve the problem even if we didn't create the problem and she's counting on that automatic response. But wait, it gets worse because she's not just throwing random accusations, she's been taking notes. This whole time. Every time you shared something vulnerable, every time you admitted a mistake, every time you showed her your insecurities, she filed it away for moments like this, so when you stop dancing to her tune, she pulls out her psychological ammunition and starts firing. And the scary part is, some of this stuff might even be partially true. Maybe you did mess up that one time, 3 months ago. Maybe you could have been more attentive during that stressful week at work. But she's taking these isolated incidents and building a case against your entire character as if you're on trial for being the worst boyfriend who ever lived, and the timing is never random. She waits until you're tired or stressed or dealing with something else because she knows that's when your defenses are down and your ability to think clearly is compromised. But here's where it gets really Machiavellian, because while she's launching this emotional assault, she's also playing the victim. So hard that you start questioning if maybe you really are a terrible person because she's crying, she's shaking, she's telling you about how she can't sleep at night because of how you treat her, and your brain is literally rewiring itself in real time to believe that comforting her is more important than protecting your own mental health. And this is psychological conditioning at its finest, because every time you cave and start apologizing and promising to do better, you're reinforcing the neural pathway. That her emotional outbursts equal your immediate attention and submission, and she knows this, which brings us to strategy number 2, the intermittent reinforcement trap. And this is where she becomes completely unpredictable with her emotions and behavior, because she's realized that consistency does not create addiction. Uncertainty does. So one day she's the sweetest, most loving person you've ever met. She's texting you heart emojis. She's planning your future together. She's telling you she's never felt this way about anyone, and your brain releases dopamine because finally things are good. Again, you think maybe you overreacted, maybe she's not manipulative, maybe this is just how relationships work. But then, literally the next day, or sometimes the same day, she flips the script and suddenly you're walking on eggshells again because she's cold distant, giving you one-word responses. And when you ask, "What's wrong?" she says nothing, but her energy is screaming that everything is wrong, and you're desperately trying to figure out what you did between yesterday, when everything was perfect, and today, when apparently you're the worst person alive. And this is intentional, Because intermittent reinforcement is the most addictive behavioral pattern known to psychology. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling so addictive because you never know when the next reward is coming, so you keep pulling the lever, hoping this time will be the time she's nice to you again, and she's not doing this consciously necessarily, but she's learned that keeping you off balance keeps you hooked, because when someone is consistently nice to you, your brain adapts and stops releasing as much dopamine. But when someone is unpredictably nice, your brain stays in a state of heightened anticipation, constantly hoping for the next hit of approval. And while you're stuck in this psychological slot machine, she's watching your behavior like a scientist because she needs to know exactly how much pressure to apply and when, because too much. And you might actually leave too little and you might start getting comfortable again. So she's calibrating your emotional responses in real time, adjusting her tactics based on how you react. And this is where most guys lose their minds because they think they're dealing with mood swings or hormones. Or maybe she's just stressed about work. But this is not random emotional instability. This is strategic emotional manipulation, designed to keep you in a constant state of seeking her approval. And the moment you start recognizing this pattern is the moment she deploys strategy number 3, the social warfare campaign. And this is where things get really dark because she realizes that if she can't control you directly, she'll try to control your environment instead. So she starts poisoning your other relationships slowly, subtly but deliberately, and it starts with your friends. Suddenly, she has problems with every single one of them. Your best friend since high school apparently said something disrespectful to her, that you never witnessed your buddy who's been nothing but nice to her is actually secretly trying to break you guys up. According to her, and your friend who's in a happy relationship is apparently a bad influence because he's going to lead you astray somehow. And at first, you defend your friends because you know they're good people, but she doesn't argue with you directly. Instead, she plants seeds of doubt. She mentions how your friend looked at her weird, or how he said something that made her uncomfortable. And she's not asking you to stop hanging out with them. She's just sharing her feelings and trusting you to make the right decision. And slowly your friend group starts shrinking because it's easier to avoid the drama than deal with her constant complaints and concerns about everyone you care about. But it doesn't stop there because she's also working on your family now. Suddenly your mom doesn't like her for mysterious reasons that she can't quite explain, but she feels the tension. And it hurts her so much that you're caught in the middle and your sister's apparently jealous of your relationship and making comments behind her back. And your dad doesn't respect her, and she knows because of the way he looks at her, and piece by piece she's isolating you from your support system, while positioning herself as the only person who truly understands you and loves you unconditionally. And this isn't happening over weeks. This is happening over months or even years. So slowly that you do not notice until one day you realize you haven't hung out with your boys in months. You barely talk to your family anymore, and the only person left in your social circle is her, and maybe a few people she approves of, and that's when she's got you exactly where she wants you. Because now, when she deploys the other strategies, you have nowhere to go for perspective. You have no one to reality check her behavior with, and you're completely dependent on her for social connection and emotional validation. And this brings us to the final strategy, the one that is most dangerous, because it attacks your sense of reality itself. And that's strategy number 4, the gaslighting masterclass, where she doesn't just manipulate your emotions, she manipulates your perception of truth itself. And this starts small with little things that make you question your memory. She'll say she never said something that you clearly remember her saying, or she'll insist that an argument happened completely differently than how you remember it. And when you bring up specific examples, she'll look at you like you're crazy and say something like, "I can't believe you would twist my words." Like that, or "That's not what happened at all. And I'm hurt that you would even think I would say something like that." And suddenly, you're not arguing about the original issue anymore. You're defending your own memory and perception of reality. And it escalates, because she starts rewriting history. In real time, she'll bring up fights that happened months ago, but her version of events is so different from yours that you start wondering if maybe you did misunderstand. Maybe you were being too sensitive. Maybe your memory really isn't that good, and she's so confident in her version. of events so emotionally invested in her narrative that your brain starts accepting her reality over your own, because it's easier than constantly fighting about what actually happened. And this is psychological warfare at its most sophisticated, because she's not just trying to win arguments. She's trying to become the authority on reality in your relationship, so that whenever there's a disagreement, your default response is to assume you're wrong and she's right. And once she establishes this dynamic, she can rewrite any situation to make herself the victim, and you the perpetrator. And the scariest part is she starts using your own words against you in ways that make you question if you ever really meant what you said. She'll take something you said during a vulnerable moment and throw it back at you weeks later, but twisted just enough that it sounds terrible coming out of your mouth according to her version. And you're sitting there thinking, did I really say it that way? Did I really mean it that way? And this constant reality checking is exhausting, because your brain is using massive amounts of energy trying to figure out what's true and what isn't. And eventually, most guys just give up and accept her version of events because it's less mentally draining than constantly fighting about objective reality. So, how do you protect yourself from these strategies? Because once you see them, you can't unsee them. And the first step is documenting everything, and I mean everything. Screenshots of conversations, notes about arguments, recordings, if you live in a one-party consent state, because manipulative people rely on your faulty memory and their ability to rewrite history. But when you have documentation, they can't gaslight you about what actually happened. And the second step is maintaining your other relationships at all costs, because isolation is the foundation that makes all the other strategies possible. So when she starts having problems with your friends and family, you dig deeper. You ask specific questions, you get their side of the story, and you don't just take her word for it. And the third step is learning to sit with discomfort, because her entire strategy depends on your need to fix her emotions immediately. So when she drops a guilt bomb or starts crying or gets angry, you don't react, you don't apologize, you don't try to fix it. You sit there and let her feel whatever she's feeling without making it your responsibility. And this is going to feel terrible at first, because you've been conditioned to believe that her emotional state is your fault and your job to fix, but it's not. And the fourth step is trusting your gut, because if something feels off, it probably is. And if you find yourself constantly confused about what's happening in your relationship, constantly apologizing for things you don't remember doing, constantly walking on eggshells to avoid her next emotional outburst, then you're probably dealing with someone who's using these strategies against you. And look, I know this is heavy stuff, and I know some of you are watching this and recognizing your own relationships and feeling that sick pit in your stomach, because you realize you've been living in a psychological prison that you didn't even know existed. And that's okay, because awareness is the first step toward freedom, and you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're not too sensitive. You're just dealing with someone who's using advanced psychological tactics that most people don't even know exist. And the fact that you're watching this video means you're already starting to wake up from the spell. So what are you going to do with this information? Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. And if you recognize these patterns in your relationship, you have a choice to make. You can keep living in the matrix hoping things will get better, or you can start implementing boundaries and see what happens when you stop playing her games, and I'll tell you what happens. She'll escalate everything I just described, will get worse before it gets better, because you're disrupting a system that's been working perfectly for her. But here's the thing about manipulative people: when their tactics stop working, they eventually move on to easier targets, because manipulation is about control. And if they can't control you, they'll find someone they can control. And that's actually good news, because it means you're not stuck, you're not trapped. You always have the power to stop playing the game, even when it feels like you don't. And if you found this video helpful, hit that like button, because apparently that matters for the algorithm. And if you want more content about protecting yourself from psychological manipulation, hit subscribe, because I'm going to keep making videos that tell you the truth about dating and relationships, even when that truth is uncomfortable, because someone needs to talk about this stuff honestly, and it might as well be me.